October 2012, Patrol Base Wahid, Nadali District, Helmand Province. A Lance Corporal of the 2nd Battalion Parachute Regiment stood on the front hood of a flatbed truck with a tin of white paint in one hand and a brush in the other. He was painting one word across the armoured shield that protected his general-purpose machine gun. The word was taxi. The joke was private, and it belonged only to men who had ridden that particular truck. By that October morning, the vehicle beneath him had already survived 2 improvised explosive device strikes on separate combat logistic patrols, 2 blasts, 2 recoveries, 2 returns to service, no serious casualties either time. 3 days later, on the return leg from a handover at Checkpoint Asmat, a command wire device detonated beneath it for the 3rd time. Every man inside walked away. It looked like a beefed-up American pickup. It had no turret, no tank gun, no famous name. It was, in almost every respect, the least glamorous British vehicle in Helmand. Over the next 5 years, it would run the deepest combat logistic patrols of Operation Herrick, plug the killing gap between the Snatch Land Rover and the Mastiff, absorb more roadside bombs than any other medium logistics platform in British service, and finish its career fighting Russians outside Kherson and jihadists on Ghana's northern border. Its designation was the Husky Tactical Support Vehicle Medium, and it was the most important British truck nobody ever talked about. To understand why the Husky existed, you need to understand the problem Britain faced in 2008. By the autumn of that year, Operation Herrick was 5 years into a war nobody had planned to fight at this scale. The Royal Logistic Corps was running resupply convoys to forward operating bases at Musakala, Sangin, and Nadali in trucks that carried no armour at all. The man support fleet was modern, but naked. The old Drops flatbed, reliable and British, carried pallets of ammunition, water, and rations down routes seeded with pressure plates and command wires. Drivers wore body armour and prayed. Above them, the Mastiff had arrived as an earlier urgent response. 24 tons of Cougar chassis wrapped in American steel. It worked, but it was too wide for most Helmand alleys, too heavy for many bridges, and too obvious against a skyline. Drivers described threading it through Sangin compounds as trying to park a container ship in a village lane. Below them, the Snatch Land Rover had become a political scandal. Coroners had named it. Parliament had argued over it. Grieving families had demanded its removal. By 2008, the name itself had become shorthand for bureaucratic failure, a soft-skinned jeep still being used in a war where the enemy had moved on to shaped charges and command wires buried under goat tracks. Between the Snatch and the Mastiff lay a gap wide enough to lose a war in. On the 29th of October 2008, Defence Secretary John Hutton announced a £700 million protected mobility package. Roughly £350 million of that money was ring-fenced for a new programme called the Tactical Support Vehicle Trinity. 3 trucks, light, medium, and heavy, named after dogs, Coyote, Husky, Wolfhound. The contract for the medium was signed on the 5th of April 2009. It bought 262 vehicles from Navistar Defence for almost £120 million. A follow-on order in September 2010 added 89 more, total fleet 351. The chassis chosen was the international MXT-MVA, built in West Point, Mississippi, on the same production line as the American Max Pro, armoured by Plus and Sasa of Israel using a modular kit system. Fitted out in Malvern, Worcestershire, by a British company called Detecna, who installed Bowman radios, Blue Force trackers, and a classified electronic jammer suite that drove the distinctive rooftop antenna cage, British soldiers learned to identify from a mile away. Under the armour sat a 6-litre V8 turbo diesel rated between 300 and 340 horsepower. Behind it, an Allison 5-speed automatic gearbox, 4-wheel drive, permanent, with differential locks and central tyre inflation. Top speed, 70 miles per hour. Range, roughly 430 miles on a tank. Wading depth, just over 1 metre. The truck itself was 6.4 metres long, 2.9 metres wide over the armour, and weighed 14.3 tonnes combat loaded. Crew of 4, commander and driver forward. 2 troops or a top cover gunner behind. Payload in the open cargo bed, roughly 2.9 tonnes. Enough for a half section of men, a casualty on a stretcher, or a few pallets of ammunition and water pushed out to a patrol base that no heavier vehicle could reach. Variants were practical, not fancy. A utility version for general logistics, a command version for officers, a heavy weapon version with a mount for the 12.7mm machine gun, an ambulance version for casualty evacuation, and, from 2011, a recovery version fitted with an 8-ton winch to pull out vehicles that were not so lucky. Protection was the point. The Plasson armour kit delivered blast attenuation through composite liners, multi-layer ballistic glass, energy-absorbing seats, and a belly plate designed to survive buried charges the Snatch could not. The Ministry of Defense never published the exact protection rating. What it published instead was the casualty data, and the casualty data was remarkable. Now, before we get into where this truck actually fought, and the 3 separate strikes that one particular Husky survived, if you are enjoying this deep dive into British military engineering, hit subscribe. It takes a second, costs nothing, and helps the channel grow. The Husky reached Helmand in the spring of 2010, weeks after Operation Herrick had pushed Task Force Helmand deeper into Nadali and Marja than it had ever been. By March of that year, 123 vehicles were with frontline units. The first major public use came almost immediately. 12 Logistic Support Regiment ran what the Ministry of Defense called the largest combat logistic patrol ever conducted in Afghanistan, pushing a joint British and American convoy up to Forward Operating Base Edinburgh at Musakala. Private Jess Cheek of 6th Squadron gave the interview. Huskies ran the protection detail. No losses. From that moment, the pattern was set. Route 611, snaking north up the Sangin Valley, became their road. Forward Operating Base Jackson at Sangin. Forward Operating Base Inkerman further up the valley. Kajaki Dam at the northern end. Forward Operating Base Shorkat at Nad Ali. Patrol Base Wahid. The Husky ran to all of them. The routine was deceptively simple and relentlessly dangerous. Out before dawn from Camp Bastion, a column of mastiffs, huskies and jackals threading the desert tracks. A pre-planned route, because the Taliban watched planning, a counterintelligence screen, because the Taliban watched the screen, a lead mastiff sniffing for pressure plates, a jackal pushing the flanks, and in the middle the Huskies carrying mail, medics, ammunition, food, fuel bladders, and sometimes the Sergeant Major. A single combat logistic patrol could last 3 days. It could stretch to 7. Crews slept in the cabs when they could. They ate ration packs standing up. They crossed wadis that had been safe a week earlier and were not safe anymore. They passed compound walls where the pressure plate had been set that morning, and the triggerman was watching from 300 meters away with a mobile phone in his hand. The electronic jammer cage overhead hissed and whined, cutting the signal before it could reach the detonator. Most days, it worked. Some days, it did not. The units that crewed them formed a roll call of British Combat Logistics, 12 Logistic Support Regiment, 10 Queen's Own Gurkha Logistic Regiment, 13 Air Assault Support Regiment. The infantry used them too. 1st Battalion, the Royal Welsh, on Herrick 11 and Herrick 16. 2nd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment, on Herrick 13. 23 Engineer Regiment through 2011. And then there is the truck now parked under hangar lights at the Imperial War Museum at Duxford. Its registration is KJ80AB. It arrived in Helmand in April 2010 with Herrick 12 and served continuously until October 2012. In that span, it was struck by 3 separate improvised explosive devices. The first strike damaged the running gear. The vehicle was recovered, hauled back to Camp Bastion, repaired, and returned to patrol within weeks. The second strike hit harder. Same result. Recovered, repaired, returned. The mechanics at Bastion began to treat that particular Husky as something between a mascot and a quiet argument for the procurement decision. The third came in October 2012. On the return leg from a handover of Checkpoint Asmat to the Afghan local police. A command wire-initiated device detonated beneath the hull. The crew, linked in the vehicle's service record to a soldier named Stephen Evans of 1st Battalion, the Royal Welsh, walked away for the 3rd time. The truck was finally withdrawn from service, shipped back to Britain, and placed on long-term loan to the Imperial War Museum in 2015. No crew member was seriously injured in any of the 3 strikes. The Duxford caption describes KJ80AB as a testament to the effectiveness of the vehicle's design. That is the politest possible version of what it actually is. It is a 14-ton, 3x bomb truck whose crews all came home. That pattern repeated across the fleet. In the House of Commons on the 9th of September 2010, a Member of Parliament referenced a Royal Army Medical Corps corporal on his 2nd tour. He had been, in the member's words, blown up in a new Husky armoured vehicle, and he and his entire crew had survived. A systematic cross-check of every British fatality in Afghanistan against vehicle type lies beyond the public record, but a striking finding stands in the open sources. No British soldier's death during Operation Herrick is specifically attributed, in publicly released Ministry of Defence casualty announcements, to a Husky Tactical Support Vehicle strike. British soldiers were killed in Snatch Land Rovers, in Warriors, in Vikings, in Mastiffs, in Jackals, and on foot. The Husky's hull kept turning up in the column marked walked away. Somewhere on Herrick 13, a Lance Corporal of 2nd Battalion Parachute Regiment, named in the Airborne Assault Museum archive as Chris Wilmot, painted that single word on his gun shield: taxi. British soldiers reserve that tone for the vehicle that always turns up, rarely gets the headline, and almost always gets you home. On paper, The Husky had no business succeeding. The Foxhound looked more modern, the Jackal looked more aggressive, the Mastiff looked harder. The Wolfhound, its heavier six-wheeled cousin, carried more. In practice, the Husky occupied a gap nothing else could fit. It was a quarter the cost of a Mastiff and a fraction of its silhouette. It was heavier and far better protected than the Coyote. It was light enough to fly in a C-17 transport, narrow enough to thread a compound alley, and tall enough to ride over the berms that killed lower vehicles. It could follow a Jackal screen down a Wadi or back a Mastiff formation into Sangin without becoming the bottleneck. The influential British defence blog Think Defence criticised the entire tactical support vehicle programme at the time as a knee-jerk reaction to the Snatch scandal. The Husky took particular flack. It was, critics pointed out, a rejected American design, refused by the United States Marine Corps in the armoured truck competition of 2009. By then, the first Huskies were already in Helmand doing a job no one else had been asked to do. That was the quiet genius of the procurement. The American Marines had wanted a combat MRAP, heavy and turreted, suited to counterinsurgency in Iraq. The British wanted a protected logistics truck, medium and flatbedded, suited to keeping a forward operating base fed and watered while the enemy tried to blow up the road. Two different problems, two different answers. The vehicle that lost the American competition won the British one precisely because it was not what the Marines had been looking for. Operation Herrick ended with the handover of Camp Bastion on the 27th of October, 2014. The Ministry of Defence announced that about 325 of the 351 Huskies would transition into the Core Army 2020 fleet. The rest had been written off in theatre. What followed was a quiet second life. No deployment to Operation Shader in Iraq. No deployment to Operation Taral in Kabul. No deployment to Operation Newcomb in Mali. Mastiff, Foxhound and Jackal took those jobs. The Husky sat in reserve, waiting for a war that did not come. Then the war came to Europe. In May 2022, the United Kingdom gifted 70 Huskies to the Ghanaian Armed Forces for counter-extremist operations along Ghana's northern border, where jihadists spillover from Burkina Faso and Mali had begun to threaten coastal West Africa. From June 2022, Huskies began appearing with Ukrainian air assault forces in the Kherson and Zaporizhzhia sectors. Ukrainian paratroopers, interviewed that summer, praised the vehicle for its reliability, its ease of operation, and the protection it offered against artillery fragments and roadside mines that had already destroyed lighter Soviet-era transports. On the 24th of April, 2024, the British government announced a £500 million Ukraine aid package, including 160 more Huskies, effectively emptying the remaining British fleet. Open-source damage trackers have since confirmed at least 21 combat losses in Ukrainian service across 2 years of high-intensity war against a peer adversary. Most crews survived those losses. The armour designed to absorb a Taliban pressure plate in Helmand was absorbing Russian artillery in Kherson, and it was still doing the job. As of today, the Husky has effectively left British Army active service. One example sits at Duxford. The rest are fighting, or scrapped, or gone. Return to Helmand Province. October 2012. The Lance Corporal with the white paintbrush. The shield, the word taxi. The Husky was not elegant, it was not fast, it was not British. It had no turret, no tank gun, no night vision worth remembering, no protection against the heavier shaped charges. It was an American truck bought in a hurry, armoured by an Israeli firm, fitted out by a British company that went bankrupt 6 years later. And yet it worked. It worked on Route 611, it worked at Musa Kala, it worked at Sangin. It worked outside Patrol Base Wahid when the command wire finally triggered for the third time, and every man on board walked home. Mastiff got the headlines, Foxhound got the flag, Jackal got the recruiting posters, the Husky got 3 roadside bombs, a Lance Corporal with a pot of white paint, and a quiet corner of a Duxford hangar. That is not luck. That is the difference between the weapon the cameras love and the truck the soldiers trust.